There are 12 things people repeat about rifles and firearms as though they are gospel truth that will either put you in the ground or put you in handcuffs. Not might, will, because every single one of these myths sounds reasonable, sounds like something a smart person would say, sounds like the kind of thing your uncle told you when you were 14 and you never questioned it. And every single one of them crumbles the moment it meets real ballistics data, real case law, or a real threat that does not behave the way you assumed it would. I am not here to lecture you. I am here to make sure you do not learn these lessons the hard way, because the hard way means a courtroom, a hospital, or a funeral. 12 myths. The first 7 can get you killed. The last 5 can get you locked up. Let us go. Myth number 1. The gun is not loaded. This is the single most dangerous sentence in the English language when spoken near a firearm. Every negligent discharge ever recorded started with someone who was certain the gun was empty. Absolutely certain. The chamber was checked 10 minutes ago, the magazine was removed, it was just sitting on the bench, and then someone pulled the trigger, and the gun did what guns do. It fired. There is no such thing as an unloaded gun in your hands. Every firearm, every single one, is treated as loaded until you have personally verified the chamber, the magazine well, and the action, and even then, you do not point it at anything you are not willing to destroy. The moment you tell yourself it is not loaded, you have already failed the first and most critical rule. Myth number 2. I do not need training, I grew up around guns. Familiarity is not proficiency. Growing up around firearms means you are comfortable around firearms. Comfortable is not the same as competent, and under stress, the gap between those two words is where people die. Drawing under pressure, managing recoil on follow-up shots, clearing a malfunction with adrenaline flooding your system, making a shoot or no-shoot decision in less than 2 seconds. None of that is inherited. It is trained. Professional firearms instructors will tell you that their most dangerous students are not beginners. Beginners listen. The most dangerous students are the ones who walk in with decades of bad habits they have never been corrected on, because nobody in their family ever took a formal class either. Myth number 3. A bigger caliber always means more stopping power. This one kills people on both sides of the equation. The shooter who trusts a magnum round to compensate for poor shot placement, and the person downrange behind a wall that everyone assumed would stop a .44 but did not. The truth that every ballistics expert and trauma surgeon will confirm is that shot placement is king. A well-placed 9mm hollow point to center mass will end a threat faster and more reliably than a poorly placed magnum round to the shoulder. The FBI switched back to 9mm in 2015 after decades of caliber chasing because the data was clear. Modern defensive 9mm ammunition achieves nearly identical terminal performance to 40 caliber and 45 caliber loads, with less recoil, faster follow-up shots, and higher magazine capacity. The caliber you can shoot accurately under stress is the caliber that saves your life. Everything else is a ballistic ego trip. Myth number 4. You do not have to aim a shotgun. At 7 yards, which is a generous home defense distance, a 12-gauge loaded with double-aught buckshot produces a spread of roughly 3 to 4 inches. That is barely wider than your fist. You absolutely have to aim, and if you miss at that distance because you pointed instead of aimed, you have now sent 9 pellets of 33 caliber lead through a wall and into whatever is on the other side. The myth that shotguns are room-clearing magic wands comes from action movies and nowhere else. At home defense distances, a shotgun requires the same fundamental marksmanship as any other firearm. Myth number 5. Birdshot is a safe home defense load because it will not overpenetrate. This one sounds logical, and it will get you killed. Birdshot is designed to kill animals small enough to hold in one hand. Against a determined human threat at 10 feet, the majority of birdshot pellets penetrate approximately 3 inches of ballistic gelatin. The FBI minimum standard for effective terminal performance is 12 inches. That means birdshot will cause a painful surface wound, but may not reach the vital organs necessary to stop an attacker who is committed to hurting you. If the threat is serious enough that you have decided to pull the trigger, you owe it to yourself and your family to use ammunition that will actually end the threat. That means buckshot or slugs. There is no in-between when your life depends on it. Myth number 6. Racking the shotgun will scare them away. This is the myth that Hollywood built, and it is the myth that gets people killed in their own hallways. The distinctive sound of a pump-action cycling is recognizable. That is true, but relying on a sound effect as your primary defensive strategy is not a plan, it is theater. Racking the slide does 3 things, all of them bad. It tells the intruder exactly where you are, it tells them exactly what you are armed with, and it confirms that your weapon was not loaded and ready when the threat appeared, meaning you spent critical seconds making your gun functional instead of using it. Law enforcement professionals and defensive shooting instructors are unanimous on this. Your home defense shotgun should be stored loaded, with the safety engaged, ready to fire the moment you need it. If you are counting on a sound to save your life, you have already lost the initiative. Quick pause. If you have ever been told any of these myths by someone you trusted, I want to hear about it. Drop it in the comments. Every correction saves someone else from learning the hard way. Myth number 7. My rifle's safety makes it safe to be careless. A mechanical safety is a mechanical device. Mechanical devices fail. Safeties have been documented disengaging from drops, from vibration, from temperature changes, and from simple wear over time. The Remington 700 Walker trigger mechanism was the subject of a decades-long controversy over alleged unintended discharges when the safety was released. A safety is a backup. It is not a substitute for muzzle discipline, trigger discipline, and the 4 fundamental rules of firearms handling. If you are relying on a small metal lever to be the only thing between a loaded chamber and a discharge, you have outsourced your responsibility to a piece of spring steel. That is not safe. That is negligent with extra steps. Now let us talk about the myths that send people to prison. Myth number 8. Warning shots are a good idea. In the vast majority of jurisdictions in the United States, a warning shot is prosecuted as reckless discharge of a firearm, attempted assault, or both. Here is why. If you have time to fire a warning shot, you are demonstrating to a prosecutor that you had time to think, that you were not in immediate mortal danger, and that you chose to discharge a firearm anyway. Every bullet you fire, you are legally and civilly responsible for. A round fired into the air has to come down. A round fired into the ground can ricochet. A round fired into a wall can penetrate into the next room or the next house. If the threat is serious enough to justify pulling the trigger, you aim center mass. If it is not serious enough to justify aiming center mass, the gun stays holstered. There is no middle ground, and attempting to create one will put you in handcuffs. Myth number 9. I will just shoot to wound to show I was not trying to kill them. This is the legal equivalent of handing the prosecutor the case on a silver platter. Legal experts and defense attorneys classify shooting to wound as one of 2 things: either bad marksmanship or evidence that the shooter did not genuinely believe their life was in danger. The reasoning is straightforward. If you are in genuine fear for your life, you aim center mass to stop the threat as quickly and decisively as possible. If you are deliberately aiming for a leg or an arm, you are demonstrating that you had the composure and the time to choose a non-lethal target, which means you were not in imminent fear of death. That distinction has sent people to prison. The legal standard is not shoot to kill, it is shoot to stop. And stopping means center mass, every time. Myth number 10. Castle doctrine means I can shoot anyone on my property. Castle doctrine removes the duty to retreat inside your home. That is what it does. That is all it does. It does not authorize you to shoot a trespasser who is not posing an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. It does not cover someone walking across your lawn. It does not cover someone sitting in your driveway. It does not even cover someone standing in your living room if that person is not presenting an immediate threat to your life or the life of someone in the home. The moment you fire at someone who was not actively threatening deadly harm, castle doctrine evaporates and you are facing a homicide charge. Every state defines the specifics differently. Know yours before you need them, not after. Myth number 11. Stand your ground means I do not have to think. Stand your ground removes the duty to retreat in public spaces in the states that have adopted it. It does not remove the requirement for a reasonable belief that you are facing an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. Reasonable is the key word, and reasonable will be defined by 12 jurors, a prosecutor, and a judge, not by you in the moment. If the threat could have been avoided by walking away, if you escalated the encounter, if witnesses describe you as the aggressor, stand your ground will not protect you. These laws expand your legal options. They do not give you permission to start a confrontation and finish it with a firearm. And myth number 12, the one that puts people in federal custody. My state permit lets me carry anywhere. It does not. Your concealed carry permit is valid in your state and in any state that has a reciprocity agreement with your state. The moment you cross into a state that does not honor your permit, you are carrying illegally. Federal buildings, post offices, courthouses, schools, and school zones are off limits regardless of your state permit. Private businesses that post no firearms signage carry the force of law in many states, meaning you can be arrested for trespass or worse if you carry past that sign. And the federal interstate transportation law, which allows you to transport a firearm through any state as long as it is unloaded and locked, has been inconsistently enforced and has not prevented arrests in states with strict firearms laws. If you carry across state lines without researching every jurisdiction you will pass through, you are gambling with a felony. And here is the principle that ties all 12 of these together. The single most dangerous thing in any room with a firearm is not the gun. It is a person who thinks they already know everything they need to know. Guns do not care about your assumptions. The law does not care about your intentions. Ballistics do not care about your confidence. What saves your life and keeps you free is knowledge you verified, not knowledge you inherited. Now you have it. If you found even one myth on this list that you used to believe, share this with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments which one surprised you the most. Those conversations save lives.